joined the Army different than anybody else should have.
Well,
What questions you wanted, I could answer for you.
okay, what's your name?
Paul F. Hillman,
Paul F.
F, yes.
Here, why don't you close up?
You want a pad?
No, she's okay.
I got these books right here.
And today's date is November 25th, 2003. What branch of the service were you in?
Ordnance.
Ordnance.
Ordnance officer.
So it's Army Ordnance Officer.
Army Ordnance officer.
You take it.
Okay. What's the highest rank achieved?
Beg pardon?
What's your highest rank?
Your rank in the Army?
I was a captain.
Captain?
Yeah.
When were you born? When were you born?
This gal darn here thing of mine. I
Scream.
get this 8 work better. I put in a new battery. I think there's a matter with it.
Okay.
You hear that?
Can you hear us?
Maybe. I'll see if I can hear you.
When were you born?
Yeah,
Date
I
of
can.
birth.
Just talk louder, a little louder now.
What's your date of birth?
Date of birth?
Yep.
Well, December the 5th, 1904.
And you're 99?
Well, it will be. I got 2 birthdays down in the family there. The family one is the 2nd, the town one's the 5th.
So you don't know which one?
What's that?
You don't know which one?
Well, I don't remember. But anyway, one's our family history and the other's the town.
Yeah.
No telephones to speak of then, you know. 1904. No much telephones. They have to get it down to the town hall and put it in. That's where the difference is, you know.
And what town were you born in?
Town of Easton, Washington County.
And did you have brothers and sisters?
Beg pardon?
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Oh, yes. I had 1 sister. There were 7 in our family and 1 sister. They're all gone now.
Were you the oldest one?
No, I was next to the last.
Wow.
I was next to the last.
So,
I have 1 younger brother, but he's gone too. They're all gone but me.
what did your mother and father do for a living?
They ran the family farm. Been in our family since 1800. Down in Easton, my mother's farm. See, I'm working on the home genealogy right now with a, well, I've got it up to 50 years ago. Now I'm bringing it up to date. I got papers all over the place.
Right.
And they got a niece helping me down in Pennsylvania. She's a typist. She's retired. I got to go down in a couple of weeks with a lot of stuff. And we're bringing it up. We got everything from my ancestor arrived here, the boy did, in about 1787. Down in Martha's Vineyard, down that way. He came up to East, up to Washington County. How he got there, don't know, I couldn't tell. And he got a farm up on the mountain. They got a road there, I don't remember the name of it. It's between, was that Greenwich and Cambridge. And he cleared the land all off. And there's 2 farms there now. Everything is there. The building had fire, they rebuilt it now. There's other people on it. This is in the town records, of course. And then he married a local girl, and they had 4 boys, and 3 of the boys had girls, and he had one of the boys had 2 kids there too, you see, and but the others, of the 4 of them, 3 of them had girls, and one of them was a boy. Well, his farm is over there east of Greenwich right now, right on the land. And then he had 2 wives and about 12 or 13 kids.
Wow.
And they traveled all over the United States. Don't you think I don't have fun with,
Trying to track it down?
with the history?
Yeah.
We're getting that all brought up to late. And I know a lot of they didn't have any money. The only thing they had was ambition.
Right. Well,
And
that's a good thing to have.
they had ambition. Well, don't have a thing. And they started out, two of them went out to Minneapolis, and one of them at Greenwich did this, what's that, early mathematics, what do they call that? They had shorthand.
Oh, okay.
Shorthand, that's it. If you were shorthand, you got a job. They were shorthand. The two brothers went out to Minneapolis, and they got into business out there, and then one of them was to be a lawyer, and his son and his brother was the shorthand expert, was his bookkeeper.
Oh.
And so they had families and everything, the whole house I've been in there, and one of them didn't have any children, the other one did, but they're all gone. The last one was 93. She died here, about 2 months ago.
Oh, it's too bad.
She passed away. She'd been right here.
So,
So
what about your dad? When did he pass away?
Oh, he's been gone about 10, 12 years. He's quite a while ago.
10 or 12, your father?
Yes.
How old was your father when he passed away?
No. I was going to say, he's right up in his 90s.
Was he your own?
And my mother was 95.
So it runs in the family then?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Well, that's...
Oh, yes. All the family members have lived a long while.
Well, that's great.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, let's get back to our paper here. What were your dates of service for the war?
Well,
When did you go in?
I got mine different than anybody else.
Well, tell us about that.
Well, I got a call one day from the Mack Truck Company in Albany, and they're having trouble in Pine Camp with equipment. Winter of 1942,
Where is this?
my office down here,
Uh-huh.
Fort Everett Express office.
What camp were they having problems in?
Pine Camp. That's a water tower.
Water.
That's what all it's called, Pine Camp. you know.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now they got another name for it. They changed it. Originally it was Pine Camp. Well, they had a lot of troops up there. Well, they had trouble with engines freezing up and big problem. Because these are greenhorns, don't know anything about cold weather, and they had 30 below zero weather up there, you know. And they had an ordnance officer came from down the south, and he'd never been in cold weather at all. Cuba, I think he'd been in Cuba. And before Castro got in.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes back quite a ways. And he was trying to tell him what to do. Well, he didn't know anything about cold weather. Never been in cold weather, you know.
And you had a company at the time?
And I was sure working, helping run the company.
What was your company about?
We were Fort Everett Express.
And
We
you
hauled
did what?
Gasoline, fuel oil, propane, cement. I started the milk business in 1932, my brother Frank and I.
Uh-huh.
And we revolutionized the hauling of milk in this United States.
How'd you do that?
We had the first with the Delaware Dairy Company. They started a new plant in Fort Everett, and we had been in the hauling milk before. We got a 1920 truck right down the garage on the farm. There were all 150 cans going 20 miles an hour. That was fast, faster than horses, you know. But anyway, we do a little bit about the hauling. So my brother Frank went up and met them. They said if you could help us buy the milk, you can haul it to New York. Now this is a crazy deal, you know, because it's never been done. Everything all on trains back in 32, 1932. So we said, we'll help you buy it. We can get a tank. And no money. But anyway, we figured we'd get a tank, or we got to get the milk first. So we went all through Washington County, Saratoga. And I used to go ahead of my brother Frank. We had to get the farmers to agree to go, you know, because the local milk companies like Woods in Boston had it sewed up. You sell to them, you didn't have anybody. This was competition for them.
Right.
And these two fellows, they came from Europe, Jewish fellows, and good Mr. Sobel, Mr. Rubenfeld, two nice, good, honest guys. Their work was great. And they had a big company, ended up being awful big. Biggest in New York today. But anyway, they got to have milk. And we were there to help them. We knew the farmers, and you know how my father sold loud equipment, higher silos, around Washington County, and the farmers all going, well, if he said it was all right, the farmers would believe us, you know, to sell their milk, because this is, you have a month's milk and no money, you know, what are you going to do? So we were taking milk away from, we took away some from Hood and all for down here at Borden's. Borden's had it sold up along the railroads, you see. All went in tank cars.
Wow.
Oh, that's the way it always went in. Brought it in cans with horse and wagons first, and then he had 1.5 trucks to haul it in. So when they came up here and they had pieces of paper, so my brother Frank went and told we'd help them. They needed us all on the farm down there, you know. Well, anyway, we had a good idea, because we'd hauled milk before, you know, 6 miles with horses and wagons in this truck.
Wow.
This was pretty new in those days, you know. But anyway, they...
So you built up a fleet of trucks?
So anyway, we started with the trucking business there. And first we had to get the milk, get the farmers to bring it in, or had to get it brought in. And then we'd have to help young guys, help finance them, to buy a truck so they could pick it up. See, we gradually picked up over 700 cans of milk. And we used to have 4 trucks ourselves with 1.5 tons Chevys, you know, to pick up the milk and bring it in. And had to be at the farmer's house 7 o'clock. You got to get by 10 o'clock. Board of Health, New York City Board of Health. Well, when we did that, they brought it right into the milk plant, weighed it, and tested it, and cooled it. So then we had to get a tank and a truck to take it to New York City. See, this has never been done before.
Wow.
Nothing like this has been done. Crazy idea, you know. Well, but anyway, we got the Hale Company to build a 200-can tank for us.
Wow.
And they did. And nobody's got any money. Everybody's on credit, you know.
And the
Back
Depression, this is the Depression time.
then, you have to work.
The Great Depression.
Beg pardon?
So you guys made this happen during the Great Depression?
Yeah, sure. 1932 Depression, you know.
Wow, that was the bottom.
And, beg pardon?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
But anyway, we got the milk and had to all through the Board of Health of New York City, got it going, and we had 200 cans to start in with. We had a Ohio tank and a Mack truck, got it on credit, you know. Everybody wants to sell, hoping the guys are going to make some money for them. So anyway, my brother Frank went the first load, 200 cans to Yonkers. Now this has revolutionized the business and is upsetting the other milk companies in New York, because they had us sold right up, you know.
Right.
Farmers no place else to buy.
The big ones, right.
And then we, I went the second day, go 25 miles an hour, 172 miles.
Wow.
From Fort Edward down there, Mooster Ranch. Well, we got so we had to buy another tank. And we got a trailer and a tractor for that. A 2 compartment, and 200 and one they wanted to have cream, so put cream in the front compartment, 50-can compartment, you know. And that were good. The farmers, they paid a little more money, the farmers sell it to them. And we went right on putting that tank. Then we had to get another tank, and that was a 317-can tank. Another tractor. Now we got to get help. We've already got 2 boys from Fort Edward. They're all gone now, and so that and other companies see what's going on. Then they got to want us to haul milk for them. And then competitors got in. There were haulers that were like we were, had a good idea up in Mohawk Valley, and they started hauling milk down to New York, and that's the way these things start. You know?
No kidding. It's
They
like a
got an
snowball.
idea, no money, but they got an ambition to work.
Isn't that something?
And so we hauled to New York City, and we had a lot of milk tanks. We hauled plants out of Chateaugay, New York, to New York City. Take 2 trailers for a tank, and then we hauled from Ogdensburg down to New York City.
And that was before the Northway and the Thruway.
Oh, this before, there wasn't no country with no roads like that, no throughways, all regular, the old fat old roads, you know. 35 miles an hour, 40 was going wide open, you know.
Yeah.
But it revolutionized the hauling of milk in this United States.
So you got a reputation for being able to handle it. You said you got a call?
And then we got the Shell Oil Company wanted us to also put a tank on and haul some gasoline for them.
No kidding.
Oh, sure. Because they were big in Albany. None of them are here anymore. Everybody's gone. A lot of oil companies in Albany.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we started in with one, let me see, I think it was 3,200 gallon, the gasoline tanker. Well, and we picked it up in Albany and take it right down, right to this, where they wanted it to go, you see, in the city. And that worked darn good. And then we started picking up at the terminals in Albany and delivering around to different places, you know. Some of them had 2,000 gallon tanks, you know. But say, see, this is working. This new was different, you know.
Right.
Why then Albany became a place where other people got into it. The competition got right after it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we had competitors, and we had all gasoline all the way up to Plattsburgh, Chateauguay, Malone, all through there, Albany. Today it all comes out of Canada.
Does it?
On account of the regulation, everything has changed today.
Yeah.
Size of the tanks and everything. And then when the people, they closed the canal off, why that put us out of the petroleum hauling to a certain extent, because hell, they were getting it, they changed the regulations, they're getting out of Canada.
Right.
And that's, everything has changed right around, modernizing, you know.
Right.
So,
So getting back to how you got into World War II, they called you up because you know how to
well, they
maintain
yes. Well, the Mac company had a man from the War Department. I don't know what section. They're having a pile of trouble with plane camp. They had their engines all frozen up, and so they wanted to know if you knew some Mac company knew somebody. The War Department called Mac, and then Mac called us up. They came up and talked about it, and so I said, well, I'll take it, go up there and help them out for a couple of weeks.
What year was this?
1942.
42.
Yes, I go to help them out for a couple of weeks.
Couple weeks.
Yes, well, a couple of weeks lasted quite a while. But anyway, I went up and introduced myself to General Henry Baird, and I was there before his letter to the War Department got in. And I worked for the War Department for maybe 2 to 3 months. And then General Baird said to me, why, he said, why, I want you to go with us, sign right here.
And that's how you got in?
I signed right there. And one day, I'm a civilian walking around. Next day, I got, in summertime, I had captain bars on.
They made you a captain right away?
Right off the bat.
A big officer, huh?
Oh, I was an officer then. And don't you think there were a lot of envious people, and I can't do right face. And I never had any military training at all. I learned from being there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to be there for a couple of weeks. Well, the couple of weeks kept right on going, you know. And then well, we got the problem straight, and it cost the government a lot of money for this colonel that was Ordnance officer, but he didn't know what it was all about.
Mm-hmm.
Never been in any cold weather, nor anything.
So
And
what?
I have to get people from General Motors. They're well, not repair people. From people that took care of maintenance people.
Uh-huh.
And had a man come out here. I called him on the phone and talked to him. Told him better get out here. All this trouble. Well, he came out here and I showed him around. He can't believe what he's seeing, because this is a lot of money. A lot of money. And and the base is don't hard 80 trucks to run. Well, we noticed that they didn't do this foolishness with you see.
Mhm.
And so then they had to come in with a big gang of men, I think it's 150 men, and a good crowd, come right in. They had to rebuild all these engines. All these engines.
Wow.
And I can always remember, well, the ordnance officer was even a division ordnance officer, but he didn't know anything about what he was doing. And he had these engines taken out, and I can always remember showing this top man, General Motors, this whole bin full of engines. I won't repeat what he said.
That were destroyed?
Sure. Well, what they had to do, the pistons were all spoiled, you know, some engines. Well, they brought 60 men out and went through, rebuilt all the engines. But whatever was necessary, they did
Wow.
that.
That cost the government a lot of money.
Oh, sure. Just because one guy didn't know what his business.
Wow.
Now, how many times that's happened with other people?
Probably a lot.
Probably a lot of people have had that happen, you know.
So what happened to him?
Well, that officer, he eventually left the division anyway.
Did you replace him?
And, well, I wasn't a captain at that time,
Right.
you see. I was captain later on, I guess 3 months or so.
Mm.
And when I was that captain, I worked for the general, the chief of staff, and G4, they put me in G4 office.
Mm.
They had charge of the maintenance and repairs on vehicles and all of that then. And so that's what, and when the general signed, when I signed that paper, I didn't realize you would be in the Army. And I didn't have any military training.
How old were you? 40.
I was 38.
And were you married then?
Yes.
Did you have children?
No, I wasn't married then.
You weren't married yet?
No, I wasn't married till I was in 38. In 38, out in California. But anyway, there's a lot of things like that happen in the Army.
So did you go overseas
And then, well,
shortly thereafter?
oh yes. Well, I went from here to, the division. I stayed with the division, 4th Armored all the while.
Right.
The only division I was in. And we went down on Tennessee maneuvers, down there, you know. And then, incidentally, the government in those days, they had individuals, they had hired a lot of individuals to help educate these soldiers on maintenance of vehicles. And we had like 13 or 14 in our division that come in. After I got in there, got the government to send people in. And they did it with other divisions. Guys that had retired, you know, they come out and help them. Up in this North Country, and I guess in other parts of the country too. They were mechanics, you know, maintenance people that knew about equipment. Because these soldiers didn't know anything about equipment.
Right.
How would they know anything?
You had to keep it running.
Oh, yes, had to keep it all running. And cold winter, Pine Camp, you know, 30 below zero was some cold.
Yeah.
That's what made it so expensive.
So when did you go overseas?
Well, then we go to Texas,
Right.
and then I'm put in as or still in the warrant officer, or the job of the Division Ordnance Maintenance Officer, D4. And then I went to, we were shipped to Camboy, Texas, our whole division. And I was doing the same job down there. Then they changed their organization all around. And they put me under the ordnance officer of the maintenance battalion. And of course, I worked with him before, you know, on it, but he was kind of envious because I had better relations with the generals, you know, General Bear and General Wood, you know. He was kind of envious of that, you know. You can see why.
Oh, I bet.
Oh, yes. But then in Texas, we get ready to go overseas. But before that, I was put in this character put me in as company commander. You see, took me out of G4 and put me in company commander. And I can't do right face. I never had any military training. Hadn't done any in the service at all, you know, except in the office work, as you might call it, the maintenance for the division, on tanks and jeeps and everything like that. Armor was a different thing. Another guy had that. But anyway, I was appointed as company commander. Well, company commander is supposed to get up and order up to 230 men and line them up, put them out, and get 700, 800 men. And then you get the orders from the commanding officer, march your people out, you say.
Right.
Well, I'd never done a bit of that. What am I going to do? So anyway, I said, they got my Dutch up, and I said, I'll fool them. I took 2 good training sergeants, and we went away from the camp down in Texas, so nobody would see us. And we gave the orders, you know, what to do. I would order the men up, you know. You line them all up, say 200 men, got to line them up, march them over, put them against the other men. So I said after 4 days, I said, I guess I better take over. Well, being in this army, everybody bet, you know. They were all betting whether Hillman would make it or not. Oh, they had a great time, the whole battalion. See, about 800 men in the battalion. And all, everybody knew everybody. And because you live right together. Well, I never heard who made out or who made out. They wouldn't tell me, you know, but I knew they were doing it. And so I said, I'm going to fool them. So I had good relations with all the soldiers, you know. Like a lot of officers look down on the soldier, you know, it's under their nose, you know. And so anyway, I went out and ordered them right up, you know. If I hadn't used the right words, they still done it, you know, because I got along good with the boys.
Right.
And marched them right over, put them up against the other, marched up to commanding officer, you have to give a report and all of this, and he'd call you up, you know. He'd always have some stupid thing to get you to get back. Well, I've been a salesman long enough, I do not let him do that at all, you know. And so, well, after I did it for a week, it was old hat. And then one day, they took me out of command of the company, and I wasn't doing the darn thing. Meantime, I got married. Been married 18 days when they took me out of command of the company, and wondered where they're going to send me, another trading company. Well, it wasn't that at all. I had to go up to see the chief of staff. I wanted to see, I had to go and see him, report to him. Then he handed me a sheet of paper, and he says, well, I knew you would want to stay home. And I've got 330 men. This is in 43, this is early 43. With 5 days' time to head on the train to New York City and England.
Wow.
Just like that, you know. And so I've been married, we had a little 1.5 room apartment, you know, because with 50,000 troops and a lot of married people there.
Right.
They were a premium to get them, you know. But we were lucky. We married 18 days.
And you got your orders.
And then I get it top secret on the paper they give you. Nobody could say anything.
Could you tell your wife?
No, sir. Didn't tell her a damn thing. Top
So
secret means top secret.
She didn't know where you're going?
No. Well, anyway, we were going to do something. I don't remember what it was. But anyway, when I got this notice, I said, can't, you got cancer, can't do it. So here I got to get some of my clothes out of our apartment back to my tent where I had some other clothes there too, you know. I had to get everything out and not let her know what I was doing. Taking them to the cleaner, you know. Anything but tell her what's going on, you know, there. And there's a lot of other, 330 other guys who are going too from the battalion. And they couldn't say anything. So anyway, she was in on a Friday, I remember, she says, oh, I got a good supper fixed for you tonight. Well, I said, that's great. I'll enjoy it. Lying like the Dickens, you know. Couldn't tell her what I was doing. And she'd be like, she had my Chrysler and everything I owned she had was in the, I took it from my tent that I had down to the apartment. I got it in there, but she didn't realize what I was doing. And I didn't come home Friday night. Well, made in the service, she didn't think anything about that. So anyway, I was on the train heading for New York with all these soldiers, you see. And the next morning, as I find this all afterwards, she goes in there looking for me. Nobody knew me.
Nobody
knew
knew
anything
you?
about me. She can't understand it.
Oh.
Well, she went home. I don't know how perturbed she was. And she had a good dinner cooked for me. But I said, oh, you'll be home for dinner already? Oh, yes. I didn't tell her what year.
Oh my God.
Oh, she did. She had it already. It was a good cook, you know.
She must have been worried.
Well, I never dare ask her how worried she was. But anyway, on the train, I'm at 5 o'clock with all these men on the train heading for New York City. Then we went to New York City in England, you see. And we got into where we were going to stay there. I'll tell you, some different place than what we've been used to. Oh, big change, a big change. And they had blackout. Let me tell you, when you had blackout, you had blackout.
What did that mean?
You weren't running no lights. Like we got lights here, we never light in here. You'd have to have special curtains for your windows so the light wouldn't show up because you get fined. Because the airplanes going over dropping bombs down to see a light, they know it's a town building. That's what happens, you see. All over England. Their blackout was blackout.
So where were you in England? Southern England?
I was in the Shelton half, and this is about 14 miles from the coast. The Vices, that area. And traveled all around there, you see, because I was had a lot of men with me, and we were getting everything organized there then, you see.
Well, you were gearing up for the invasion.
Oh, yes, yes, the whole, and these other people came from other parts of the division coming in too. And I used to have to go out and see with the maintenance battalion I had there then. See, these were all maintenance guys. So we had to get our equipment, 2.5-ton trucks, you know. And then when the trains would come in, and everything was blackout. So I know they got it through messages come through the division headquarters, little office there, you see. And it would come to them. And then I was there every day. Then I had to take the soldiers I had, the trucks I had, and go at nighttime, all blackout, and meet the trains and take them to the place where they were going to live. And you're not very happy soldiers, you know, coming over on the boat and sick, you know, tired and all this. And I used to make it, nobody tell you anything, nobody tell you a thing. And I used to have to know where they were going to go, and then I'd make a map of it, so I'd meet the train and use this map, go through these little dirt towns to where these guys are going to stay.
With no lights?
No, just a thing like that on your truck. No lights at all. It was blackout was blackout over there. Oh, sure, they had to have it because planes are right over. They see a light down here.
Yeah.
The Germans would drop bombs.
Did it always happen at night?
Right.
Did those movements of troops always happen at night?
Oh, yes.
Never in the day?
All our division happened at night, I'll
Right.
say that. So I'd have to meet them and take them to where they were going to live. Then after a while, everybody got over here and got in their place, you know. Then we had maneuvers and everything else, and I still stayed on the G4 section. I didn't have any troops under me, and I'm doing the inspection, the equipment, everything like that around in England. Then I ran a waterproofing school, like you see right down there.
Right.
I had to go to waterproofing school down in Wales, come back, and all the vehicles going into France, you see, because drive off the ships are going in water.
Right.
And some of them pretty deep, and till they could be able to get in farther, till they made a big ramp and everything. But 14 days later, we didn't have any of that. We had to go right into the water.
Right.
Your Jeep, and you're sitting in the Jeep, the water come right up on you. You better have it running. So they had the English, I went to a school, waterproofing school, and have a salve light or grease, you have to put on all your electrical stuff. That's the main thing. And so we had the whole division had their vehicles all waterproofed, and everybody had to know how to do it. So I ran a waterproofing school. And I can always remember General Patton. I had to get a call from headquarters, report to the general, then I get the notice. I have to get men to go with me and waterproof and make sure his division, or his headquarters, 600 vehicles, were all waterproof to go in. So, and he sent his men down there to the school, so they know how to do it. We were just checking them over, make sure it's done right. But you'd be surprised with that. Waterproofing is the most stupid little thing, you know, stop your engine.
Just, if you missed just a little section, you'd be in trouble.
Well, if you had any electrical showing, you'd be in trouble.
It'd short it out, right?
Short it right out.
And that would be it. You'd be sitting duck.
And I am sure. And they had do that for everything going into Europe. It had to be done good, you know. And I had fellows in South Glens Falls. He drove a half-track for me from the Engineer Battalion. Then I had another soldier from Maintenance Battalion. And I used to have these boys come down. They'd had the school. They'd all talk to their school. A certain number come down, and I'd take them and see if they run through my test. They'd drive right off and water right up your stomach, you know. Well, you'd be surprised the guys that didn't get through. I had a half-track, because the water didn't bother the half-track. Haul them right out, you know. Then have them do it again and check them. And, you know, people are so anxious to want to pass and get through that they don't listen to what you're telling them. You probably have that.
In school? Yeah.
In school. They just don't. They're so anxious to get it, they don't get it. And I can always remember it. One Sunday morning, the major called me up. I said, I'm going into London Saturday afternoon. Oh, he's begging me to have him pass the test. So I said, all right, get down here. So he came down, and I checked it all over, and he had to do what he was supposed to do. And he got it, drove right in water. We got to him. Here I'm telling him, you know, so he should know. And twice he did it. Same thing, you know, stupid thing, you know. That's the funny part of it. And so finally, on the third try, I said, I'm going to London. I didn't fool around with you anymore, Major. I said, he started up third time, did the same thing. I said, come on, I'll show you what to do. Take it. You just touch your starter, and you touch that metal there, and your starter took the protection right off from it. Now just get out and cover that up with your finger. I'm going on. But so we had to run a waterproofing school, you see, for the whole division.
Wow.
I had a lot of boys there doing it, because they all had to drive through water with equipment.
Yeah.
See, 2.5 weren't too bad, but you take a Jeep, that's the one that was hard. Well, there's everything, water right up your stomach. Driving right straight in. Until, well, later on they started bringing, after you got ashore, you know, in 4 or 5 miles, they started filling in from where they eventually made it where a big ocean-going ship could pull right in and drive right off under the dirt right ashore.
Right.
That's the way that worked. It worked good.
The big LSTs.
Big part?
Big LSTs with the door that dropped down on the beach.
Oh yeah, sure. They have, so they get right off the ships, drive them right off. And one other thing I had, I was traveling. My job, I was traveling all over on the maintenance deal, and I wanted to get something for myself. And I thought I'd stop into this English plant. So I go in, see the fellow there, that I met at the watchman, I guess, or whatever he was, working there. And I wanted to get something. While he had to go and have tea. So I'm sitting in the chair there, and I'm looking around, and I see a great big aircraft engine. And he came out, and I said, what are you doing with an aircraft engine there? Why, he says, all the plants around here got them in there. I said, why did they do that? They didn't want to put them all in one place, because you're mounting the plant. You're going to lose one engine. You wouldn't lose them all, you know. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, I'd like to get rid of it. Well, I said, so many engines, I really looked it over, and like our first tanks, I said, Godfrey, that's that same engine. So I said, you want to get rid of it? He said, sure. I said, I'll be up tomorrow with a couple of soldiers with me, and we'll look it over. If it's good, we'll take it. Oh, he said, that'd be great. No paperwork. So we do just that. And I said, well, just like we got in our tanks. So we rode it right in our pickup, took it down to our maintenance battalion. We got an extra engine. And I said to him, are the plants running? Oh, yes. And he names the plants. I said, I'm going to write the names down. So he does. So I get a pickup from the soldier, and we go to these plants and ask them, they all want to get rid of them, you know. And we take it out, we end up with 13 engines. And when we're gone into Europe, this is right after the infantry went through first, you know. We were about 13, 14 days. And I drive through the water, then you got to take off. You're about 5 miles in. I was going through there. Well, there was an old engine for the side of the road. And one of those new ones, they took their record, because these are big, heavy things with a record, and picked it up, brought it over, put it in the tank, put it together. The boys took off, go with their outfit.
No kidding.
Oh, yes. Oh, but you see, the big trouble with the ordnance and the service, a lot of guys get the ordnance, they don't know anything about equipment. That's the biggest thing. They didn't know anything about it.
So that was the key with you, and
well, it was easy for me, because that was my business.
right.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you also were thinking a lot about how to improve things.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, sure.
That was the nature of your business back home, too.
Oh, yeah. See, I was right back home again.
The ambition.
Running the business, as you might say. Sure, all the way through Europe. Then, after everybody got in Europe, I was on the supply. Tanks and jeeps and guns and all of that, to say, not rifles or pistols or anything, but automotive equipment. My job for the ordnance was they take maybe 60, 70 men, go back to a depot, get the equipment, and bring it back to the ordnance, and then the line companies would come down and pick their equipment up. And you had to have men would you do what you were doing, and you don't want to get lost, and you got to have fuel in them and everything. Sometimes you go 100 miles, maybe 110 miles.
Wow.
Sometimes I just stuck once, had 15 guys right out in one big area, pulled in the field. You have to be careful on count of mines. Oh, gee, so I tried to get where somebody had it cleared, but I only once or twice I stay overnight with some guy's place, and then see the commanding officer get food for yourself and maybe 15 or 20 men. Oh, yes.
So you were following the tanks and the troops and the...
Oh, yes. I had to keep them supplied with all their equipment. My last end of in Europe, that's what I did. Take care of getting the supplies, because I knew the equipment. And why the railroad trains, they used to bring them into Metz, France. That was a big hub.
Metz.
After they got to Metz, a big hub. And I pulled in there one day, there's an old train full of new tanks. 76 millimeter guns, white track, made in Schenectady. A lot of them over there in Schenectady.
Waterville?
No, Schenectady. It's going, you get over the middle, going into Schenectady, the road that heads east and goes over the Hudson. Well, you go down there before you get to the Hudson.
Yeah.
And there's a big house down there now.
Huh.
Well, there was a factory down there.
Okay.
They built these tanks, put them together, Ford engines and everything.
Wow.
But they had a lot of trouble with them, because somebody over here should have been shot, because they weren't doing a good inspection. And now I found it cost a lot of money, because most people weren't any good on engines.
Right.
And I can brag about this. I know the first new ones we got off. They're right off the train, come right in from the ships. And they put them on the train and could ride right off, you see, and get on. Well, they couldn't tell them this or not, you know. But anyway, the ones we backed off the train, we had 3 of them come off. Boy, those engines sound good. And now the 4th one come off, and I said to the soldiers, I said, well, guess we got a job. You've got a bad spark plug. Well, they bet you cognac, Captain, it's all right. I said, I'll bet you the bottle of cognac that it isn't. Well, they could taste the cognac, you know. I could tell whether my ear was good because I worked on Chevrolets and Ford engines, and I could tell in the old days whether it missed it or not. Most people couldn't do that. So anyway, boy, they could taste the cognac. No, they pulled it. It's a big plate. There's a lot of work, you know. About 3.5 feet square. 5/8 bolts in, you know. Had to take it all off. It's heavy. For on the back end of the tank, shells get in there so it wouldn't go through. Right like that, you know.
Yeah.
Well, so we got it off, and we started in on the left bank on a V8 Ford, and they come to the plug it. This one, and boy, they get 4 of them. They can taste the cognac. And then they go down the other side, go down the other side, and oh, now they're going to have it. And they touch that 4th cylinder, and up she comes. I said, boys, I guess I gotta have to drink all that cognac myself. But they got so they wouldn't question me. But I see a fall 10th Army captain. Man, this happened a lot. This one I know personally. I said, Captain, you got a bad cylinder, you better work on it. I know what I'm doing. Well, the people on the engines, they didn't know a damn thing about engines. How could they know? They never worked on them. Yeah. If they ran, they ran. Well, with my ear, I could tell right away if that 8-cylinder was missing. I even had one 2 tanks, we say, 4 spark plugs missing.
Wow, they weren't even in the tank?
What? They were loose in the tank.
Oh.
And we tried to get information.
They're brand new tanks?
Brand new, sure, brand new. And we tried to get information. I got 3rd Army Ordnance officer, got hold of the colonel there. I knew. I said, you got to get a hold of them. You got too many tanks, you're going to be losing here. Other battalions going in, their guys didn't know anything. They lose them. How many tanks were lost, I don't know. Wow. Just like this guy from 10th Army. He didn't know what the engine was. I said, you got a bad engine there, Captain. He said, I know what I'm doing. I said, $10,000, you better. Drove it a mile. There's lost a brand new tank.
Wow.
But somebody in the factory, right here in Schenectady, where they're made, that's all covered up now with houses, they didn't check those. They didn't, either it was sabotage intentionally. Mm-hmm. And that's what I told the Ordnance colonel. Maybe sabotage. They tried to get it over to check them, but all those been shipped. Didn't have anybody that knew a damn thing about them. So when the war is going on, I'm keeping them supplied with tanks and jeeps and 2.5 tons and all of that. Right across here, you have to be living on your own, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And how did you help out at the situation at Bastogne during the Battle on the Bulge? So you had a citation down there for that.
Keep them supplied with equipment. That's what I had. I wasn't anything to shoot the guns. I had it there for them to use.
Well, they had to have the equipment in order to win the battle.
Oh yes. Well, that's what I was bringing the equipment in from 3rd Army to our division ordnance office. Then in charge of giving you tanks or tanks or jeeps or whatever it is. See, I had to keep them in. As soon as they lose them, I had to go right out and get them. My last big order was for 62 pieces of equipment. Brand new. Because they lost it, you see. This is getting into Germany.
Yeah.
Getting into Germany, you lose it. Boy, I was busy all the while picking up the equipment. Had a driver with me, and had to take a truck, take men, because I had to go to pick up 6 or 7 pieces. I had 6 men with me.
Where'd you pick it up? At Metz?
Like on 3rd Army Depot. They had made them at Metz, France.
Metz.
Well, we got as far as Metz. It was right from railroads, you see. Come from the boat on the railroad and right into Metz. And the maintenance battalion there was an ordnance battalion. It was a 3rd Army Ordnance Battalion. They had a good colonel that I ran it, nice fellow. And they had 20 officers there. This had to supply for all kinds of ordnance from the Army.
Wow.
And all the divisions come in there to get it, same as I was doing, you see.
Mm-hmm.
I know it cost me about 7, 8 bottles of cognac to get a big wrecker away from somebody else. But you got to deal with all these ordnance officers are in there, and there's sergeants and everything, and you don't go in and try to throw your weight around. If you do,
forget it.
Absolutely.
You'd be at the end of the line.
And I used to go in small parts sometimes, and I'd get some of them, you know. Yeah, I know one guy there. I went in, 8 or 9 officers there, started picking up equipment. So anyway, it came my turn, I said to the private back of the county there, I said, oh, help these other fellows I know, per-year soldiers. Well, boy, those other guys are happy to get their stuff and get out. Well, when I got off, whenever the last guy is gone, I was reading it, looking at the paper there, and doing anything, sitting on the chair, wait for them to get their stuff and go. Why? Then I go up to him and he said, Captain, I got everything here for you. I didn't want to have him hand it to me in front of all these other people,
Oh.
you know. But then those poor guys, you know, they didn't have any refreshments. So I used to carry some cognac with me, you know. Boys get mad, you know, they got to have something. And a lot of people going in there, here's a poor private back where he didn't have any chance to get anything, you know, or any of the other guys working with him.
Yeah.
So it didn't cost me anything. If I need some cognac, I should go to the guys to where I could get it, you know. So it was all free contract, liberated, you know.
Liberated.
Liberated contract, you know.
Yeah.
And I'd always have, I used to have a box in my Jeep, like that and that wide, and with both cognac in it, right to the bottom, and hay or oats all over it. People come up with their hands through it, and so you do it like that, you wouldn't touch the bottom. We got that taken home to the farm in New York State. This is good, I'm trying to keep it right here with me, you know. And I carried a lot of booze in there, because I have to give it out.
Yeah.
Why, then I get it replaced again. I knew how to do that.
You know how to wheel and deal.
Oh, you have to wheel and deal. Yeah. But the Army, they had a lot of poor guys. There were old lieutenants and sergeants and captains, you know, and the ordnance going up. Didn't know darn thing about equipment. Some of them were great on guns. I didn't know a stupid thing about a gun, only how to fire it. But that's what happens with in the Army service.
Yeah.
And there was that I felt sorry for in the service, and I was in all branches of it. And in fact, on New Year's of 45, 46, New Year's before the war ended, I'll put it that way.
45.
In 45.
Yeah.
And the colonel, the head of the 317 Ordnance Battalion, this is a lot of men, 20 officers plus all the soldiers, you know. The big layout took over a German plant, you see.
Mm-hmm.
And all the bookkeeping, everything, you got to keep track of everything. Well, no easy deal. And he was a good colonel, he knew his business. And he had good officers with him too. Oh, they knew their business. And of course then he had soldiers, and they could do anything, you know. But I went in to see him one day, and hell, he put down I said, Mike, I'll introduce myself. I'm going to be coming here for a lot. I moved into the coast, right into Metz, and the place still there. So anyway, he brought out a bottle of Canadian Club and stuck it down on the table. And they didn't want that much in it, you know. They said, can I have a drink with me there, Hillman? I don't want to take your booze here, Colonel. Oh, you're going to have a drink with me. So I have a drink with him. And he was a good man at it. He knew his business. And so anyway, went along, I guess a month, and I get talking with some soldiers. And I told him, I said, gee, where can I get some Canadian Club around here? And each one of these soldiers, a sergeant was in everything, you know, He was a swapper and all of it. And he said, maybe I'd get you a couple of bottles. And he said, I gotta have some cognac. So I said, well, help yourself to my cognac. It didn't cost me anything, you know. So I got 2 bottles of Canadian Club. Where he picked it up from, I don't know, didn't care. So when I had to go in, I got an old, like one of those musette bags you carry stuff with, you know. Put it right in that. Went to see his clerk, and so he said, can't come over to see Colonel. So sent that gentleman in. I walked right in, put the thing on the table, and took it up, opened up, and put those 2 bottles right on his desk. You can see the smile on his face. Where's he got a chance to get it?
Yeah.
They never tried him with a chance. He can't ask anybody. He's the top dog.
Right.
But he was a great ordnance officer and a good one. And then he had me, Christmas, New Year's of 1945. Yeah. And he said to me, he said, you know, you know those nurses down that evac hospital? I said, oh yeah, I get down there. And this is a big place, big 100th evac they call it. There's the boys brought in on trucks, you see, on jeeps. Carried them on stretchers right on the side of the jeep, 4 guys, you know, wounded, bring them in. And they had a tough job, those nurses. Boys made us save them. And so bagged up, you know, tough job. Boys getting smashed up, you know. And you don't really want to live it on. It's real tough. You gotta have a tough stomach, I'll tell you. But anyway, he said, we want to have a Christmas party. We're right over to the Rhine River. And he says, suppose you could get those nurses down there to come up. That's about 20 of them. Well, I knew the head nurse. So I said, gee, this New Year's Eve party, that'll be great. So anyway, I go over and see her. I said, how big? I'll pick up 20 girls here. Told her the time. And we're going to have a party over at 317. And oh, she was all for that. And then the officers at 317, there was a lot of officers there. So I said, I'll pick you girls up. So anyway, I get over there about 6 o'clock in the morning, or at night, have a driver, 2.5 ton, you know, put the girls right up in it, got seats in it for soldiers, you know, so we go right over, I say, and nurse had the other girls, and 20 of us, 20 girls went right over. Well, we had a big party, because he had invited all the fellows that were working, picking up stuff, like I was doing, you see, from his. He'd call them in and help with them, and I was going to have a party, invite them to come in, bring some couple of bottles of cognac or wine, or so we have it, you see, which we did. Well, let me tell you, we had, I'll never forget that 45 party, New Year's party we had. That was some good party. Supposed to have the girls back early. I did. I got back 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
we had an all-night party. Oh, that was a real indignant party. Oh, we had, he had turkey there. He had turkey and some other kind of meat that the colonel had. He wanted this, you know, and they give something for his boys to do.
Yeah.
They meet these nurses because, you know, these officers, this is officer's party, you see. How are you going to meet people if you can't get away from the job you're in?
Right.
And you don't have any transportation, how are you going to do it? You've got a problem, you know. Then he wants to keep the morale and spirit of them up, you know. So, well, he had a good orchestra. I said, I'll get these girls for you. And, oh, the head nurse was happy for that, you know. I can all remember, they're all dressed their best finery, climbing up that 2.5 ton truck and helping get them sit down on the side. But nobody thought anything of it, you know.
Oh, no.
No, that's where you did. Took them there. I took them home about 6 o'clock in the morning. Let it off. I never saw one of them sit. And I don't know what their commanding officer said either. I didn't go back to asking.
That's what you got to do.
But that was a lot of fun times, you know.
So you had some fun times too.
Yeah, you sure you have to make your own fun, you know.
Did you make it into Germany You crossed the Rhine River, right?
Oh, yes, I was way over into, what do you call it? Beyond Germany, the next, can't say the name of the state, beyond Germany.
Czechoslovakia?
Well, it's, I call it south of Czechoslovakia, Austria.
Austria.
Austria. I was in Austria, duty in infantry. Austria, the last duty I had over there was in Austria. And that's where the Germans came down through, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And people can't believe that there was a German checkpoint there. Well, took them prisoners and put American soldiers out there, you see.
Right.
And the Russians came down there for Patton lost his generalship because he said we'd drag the Russians back into Russia. 2
Right.
days later, he's not a general anymore. He didn't use his good politics. He's a great general,
Right.
but he wasn't any politician. He shouldn't have said that. But anyway, that's what happened. But while we're there at this place, I had a Mercedes-Benz touring car that was liberated, and I had the gas. And a couple other officers and myself, we drove right around.
Did you
Austria. Oh, it's a nice country, nice homes, you know.
You weren't afraid of getting shot at?
Oh, the war's all over. This war is over then. Oh, before you couldn't touch it, you'd be shot, you know. But no, the war, this after the war is all over.
Now, did you, on your way to Austria, did you go by Munich, Germany?
I've been to Munich, yeah, I've been in there 3-4 times.
Did you see any of the concentration camps?
Oh, I can tell you a good story on it. In Luxembourg, my office was right next to where the German Gestapo had their office. Oh, it's a nice office. So we took it right over.
Right.
Well, that was fine. Well, right next door to it was a mother and 3-4 boys, 3-4 people. And I don't know whether hers or not, you can't tell.
Right.
And she could speak English, a little English. One of the kids could too, one of the girls could. And anyway, they had a son that said something against the Gestapo, and they put him in a concentration camp. And I took his number down, wrote the name of the concentration number. No name, just a number.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I get near that camp, I'm going to retake it. I'm going to get up and see it. Well, this is across the Rhine River, the east side, right ways over, middle of Germany, you know. And 25,000 people in it. So when we got over there, and our Ordnance had headquarters right near there,
Mm-hmm.
so I went up to with the concentration camp. When you see what happened, the prisoners had to stay in there. The first ones, the Army let them go free, and
Right.
boy, if that didn't cause a lot of trouble.
Why?
These people are hungry. Where are they going to get anything to eat? No,
Starving.
nothing to feed them. They were stealing, going in, doing everything to get something to eat. And so after that first fracas, they had about, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 guys let loose, you see. Of course, they had, see, these concentration camps had 20,000, 30,000 people in them.
Right.
These were big affairs. No little bit of a thing. They were big. And they had, well, what we had to do, take the nerve guards off and put ours on. Got a hold of people in there, so you can control them. They got to have food. They got water, doctors, the whole thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I went up to the gate there and had them call over for this number. This kid, I didn't know his name, just a number. Finally, this young guy come down, and I had a letter to show him. And he always smiled right up, you know. He'd never seen me before, but that was his mother's handwriting thing. And I said, I told him that I was going to get him home. So I got it across to him, so he knew. So I took him down to our camp in our battalion, and
How old was the boy?
16,
16?
you know, 16, 17, just about that age. And I was going to feed him up. And George Potatoes, our doctor, battalion doctor, is what you want to do with him, and kill that kid. Just give him the same as he's been having. So what you have to do, a lot of I found out, if people get out of the concentration camp, they go out and steal or eat too much. They're so hungry, they die. Can't do that, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So you gave him a little bit, enough so he had something to eat. Well then, I got him now. How am I going to get him from Eastern Germany or middle of Germany, over to where he lived outside Luxembourg. So I finally had a sergeant, I had to go to Paris, and we're turning things in now, the war was all over, you see. If we got a word out back there, the Germans all gave up.
Right.
There. And anyway, then you got to take care of the people there, the towns and everything, you know. It's a big operation, no little deal. So anyway, I had Sergeant King had to take some old watches and stuff that turned into the service, you see, back to Paris, the headquarters. They had a reception where you take them, sign for them, all paperwork, how many watches you turned in, binoculars and all of this stuff. It would be an ordinance we get that stuff in. So I had him go take this kid. They gave him extra gas cans, because where is he going to get gas? So he take 4 or 5 extra cans, put it in that Jeep, because he knew where the place was, because he'd been in there same as I was, and took the kid home. And went out to Paris for me, delivered this stuff. Well, about 15 or 18 years afterwards, our division had a tour of the battlefield of Europe, of where we landed to the end of the war. So we stopped in Luxembourg. And I went in the house, and the old grandmother was still there, and why was she so happy to see me?
Wow.
This boy was there too, yes. Well, I'll tell you, I stayed there the rest of the night. Too much food, too much drink.
Ew. How long after the war was that?
Oh,
20 years?
16 or 20 years.
Yeah.
I got the data someplace. But we had 2 trips over there since. Or that first trip and the second one. And see a lot of people in different towns, new people that were there then.
Right.
The wives or their grandfathers or somebody, you know, they knew them, you see. And some had gotten back and from the army, getting back behind them where the shooting was over with, you know, their homes, and they met these, knew about these people staying in the house there, you know, and all this kind of business. Yeah. And this is all when they're going through, people were shooting was going on, you know.
Right.
A lot of shooting going on, a lot of poor guys. Like you read about those 75 guys, that German colonel had them shot. You read it in the paper.
Malmedy massacre, right?
Yes,
That's
they
what
got
we
him.
talked about,
This
yeah.
German colonel didn't have anybody take him concentration camp, and the soldiers shoot him.
Yeah.
And I got the history over here. They found the bodies right there in Silver Greenwich.
What?
I think there was some local guys were in there.
Were they really?
Yes, I wouldn't swear on it, but that's the way it was, you know.
Right.
And the snow shot. Well, they had the Nuremberg trials that they had. Why, this colonel that ordered it, he was one of the 20 guys they executed at the Nuremberg trials. He was one of them was executed.
Was he really?
He was a tough German colonel coming in from the Russian front. And he didn't think anybody would know anything about it, you see. But that's what happens. Oh, there's a lot of stuff that can happen. But the army is so big, people don't have any idea.
Right.
It's so big, you know. Yeah. There's a lot of people in there, you know. Today it's entirely different.
So you weren't anywhere near Nuremberg at the end, were you?
Well, I've been in Nuremberg all over, well, yes, towards after the infantry had gone down through, I was way down to the I went from Metz over into Germany, and then went right down to Nuremberg.
Yeah.
I was in Nuremberg, oh yes. And I was all over Germany after the war. See, I was there about 3 weeks before I came home. They wanted to know if you wanted to sign up. I didn't want to sign up, I wanted to come home.
When was that? Was that 46?
That was, the war was over, 46, early 46, yes. Well, the war was all through. But there's a lot of fellows, young officers, captains, lieutenants, you know, and even majors. They didn't have any occupation. They were smart, college people, and they stayed in the army.
They stayed on.
And they, for 20 years, and they went right, I know a lot of the guys went right up the ladder.
Made the career.
Well, that fellow I showed you a picture, He stayed in over there in Germany 2 years. And he was all over the world. They made journal out of it. And he was a battalion commander, and I knew him when he was a lieutenant. But that's the way it goes. But there's a lot of, the Army is so big that people don't have any idea. And a lot of boys got in the Army, did all right, and a lot of them never did get along.
Yeah.
There's human nature and everything, you know.
So when you came home, you were discharged?
Yes.
Is that when you started your family?
Well, yes. I didn't have any. Married 18 days. Left for Europe.
Was your
4 years later.
Your wife probably
Yeah.
glad to see you?
Oh yes, she came down to Camp Dix to meet me. And her home was in Buffalo.
Camp Dix is in New Jersey?
Yes. Oh, that's a big camp. That was awful big.
That's where they discharged a lot of them.
Oh, a lot of boys were discharged from Dix. A lot of them went from there to Europe too. They had a lot of places they shipped out in New Jersey. They would go over to England, you know. They couldn't have just one in different places. But I don't know how mad she was when she told me she had a good first-class dinner for me. She was a good cook. I said, I'll be there. I lied like hell. I couldn't tell her anything different. And nobody knew anything. Nobody tell her anything.
So how many children did you have?
Big pardon?
How many children did you have?
One. He's run the business now.
How old's he?
Well, I guess he's 51 or 52.
Oh, he's a young man, isn't he?
Yeah, I was with him, all day yesterday. We were up to Canada. We have to go. He's run the business now. And I came back, got business. And you'd be surprised. I knew a fellow before. Well, right at the beginning of the war, belonged to the Motor Truck Association. I was one of the organizers of it years ago. And I believe associations. And people work and do something, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a good deal. And anyway, he said to me, he said, well, I'm going over to Europe a couple of weeks. And he was in the quartermaster. And he represented one of the big trucking companies, this New York City. And so I wrote his name down so I wouldn't forget it, you know, and put it in my pocketbook. So anyway, I'm over in England before the division got there, and I'm traveling around getting located where to get these supplies and everything, you see. Tanks and jeeps, I had to get all that stuff, get it into the division. That was my job, part of it, you know. And not just on the maintenance, I had to get them, and they get set out, the troops sent in to pick them up and all this business. Well, anyway, I go down to a quartermaster store. I want to get a raincoat. Well, I paid $5 for a raincoat in New York City, and an Army raincoat. And anyway, during the course of time over in Europe, I ended up, other officers couldn't get one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I knew a fellow quartermaster down in, I call it southeastern England. He was a quartermaster captain, and I knew him. So anyway, I go down there. I sold 5 raincoats, and I made enough for myself. It didn't cost me anything.
Mm-hmm. You were good at that.
And I was good at that, and I was a swapper, you know. I knew that. Well, anyway, I get in for having lunch. When the officers go on here, we'll go to have lunch. Okay, I'm having lunch, and I'm like facing that way, and behind me, all officers were talking, and this one of us said, John, they don't care who they let in the Army. Like the Army's going to hell. We wouldn't have anything doing here, you know, all this going on. And the guys are facing me, but these other officers, big grin on their face, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, curiosity gets the best of me, and I got to turn around and say, here's my old buddy from New York. That's where he was stationed.
No kidding.
Yeah, small world. Year afterwards. Then he told me a good place. Rather go to Cross Hands Hotel for dinner. Well, I had to get somebody with a car. They just let me go buy their lunch or buy their dinner, you know. You have to take you out for I couldn't take an army vehicle and do that at all. If it was business, one thing, but if it's not business, you gotta watch it.
Wow.
But there's a lot of boys went to service, made good. Then they had a lot of boys that decided they didn't want anything to do with the army. You don't hear much about it.
No.
My traveling cross country, I learned all about what you had to watch out for. Because you don't know whether they're Frenchmen or whether they're American. How you going to tell at night? They steal jeeps and everything. I know that happened.
It did.
Yes.
The bad ones, huh?
Yeah. They had it happen. So when I used to have to take stuff back to a depot, I had my guards out. I said, anybody out shoot? That's question afterwards, because they steal them. Sure, they're deserters. You know, yeah, you don't hear much about it, you know. But in my end of the business and what I was doing, you hear a lot of things that the ordinary officer, soldier wouldn't know anything about.
The bad apples.
Bad apples. Oh, they had lots of bad apples. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
But you don't hear anything about that, which is just as well off. I'm glad it's that way. Sure. Because you're everybody a great hero, you know.
Yeah.
And you got to expect it over thousands of people. That's the hard part.
So Ashley, do you have any other questions?
I kind of want to know what your parents thought, like, about how you
Oh, I got to tell you, let's say this, so I was going to say it. Oh. I tried to get it in my mind, but I was going to tell you, I was going to say it. Well, I was the only one in the division, yes, the only one, I'm sure there's only one division, there was a captain, and never had any military training.
Right.
Never had that treat myself.
So how did your mom feel? Your mother was alive.
Oh,
your
yeah.
father.
I wrote them cards, that's the only way they knew where I was, and until them get along fine.
They didn't know exactly where you were, right?
Oh, they couldn't, you couldn't tell anybody. I dropped Marie a letter, you have an APO number, you know.
Yeah.
And that would work good at APO. Oh, sure. Then you could send that. They said, but they didn't know where you were. You eventually get your mail. Oh, you could have. Oh, they had great times with the mail. But you see, the Army is so big.
Yeah.
People, the average person, even the average soldier knows it's big, but they weren't around and stuff like I was doing,
Right.
to see so much of it. That's what makes a difference.
You were always on the move.
I was with all kinds of people, all kinds of soldiers. See, my supply deal was different than a lot of the other stuff in maintenance. They have maintenance battalion.
Yeah.
But I was over them, you see. I was up on the staff, on the general staff. Assistant Ordnance officer.
Any other questions?
Well, you know, I think that the Army, a young fellow that doesn't know what he wants to do, he ought to go and try the Army.
You think it'd be good for a young man?
I think so.
You think every young man should do it?
Well, I don't know about that. I think Lance would have liked to have done it.
Your
You
son?
know. But I had work for him to do, that's the thing. But a young fellow that doesn't know what he wants to do,
Right.
join the Army. And you can educate them.
Learn a trade.
And you know what, some people don't know this, but through our association, you hear a lot of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they go through, the government spends a lot of money, we're all paying for it, and they can't pass the test, they can't do anything. Now you go down to Wilmington, don't put it through the paper on this, South Carolina,
Yeah.
and that's a big 75,000 troops go through there.
Yeah.
And we had a convention down there 10 years ago. And riding down on the train, I saw the god-awful set of young people, your life, and one kid had his hair way down here, you know, an old big mustache. He had the whole works. Black hair,
Yeah.
And there was about 18 or 20 in it. And I wonder what college these kids were going to school. Because I rode from, I think it was Pittsburgh down there. That's it. We're getting off.
Made an impression.
On the airline. No, train. I had the train. Because I couldn't get down there the other way, so I had to take the train. But anyway, when I get down there, I get off, and I'm walking around waiting for a friend of mine to go to meet me. And in came these people. And a little girl, a little sergeant, trained him, took him over to this big air base down there.
Fort Bragg.
Wilmington.
Fort Bragg.
No, not Fort Bragg. It's another name. I never remember the darn thing. It's a big air base, 75,000 people used to be there. But anyway, while we were staying in a hotel, we had about 200 of our 4th Army guys. So we're going down and guests and have lunch and guests of the general of the division that's out there. Army meals and all, we had a good lunch. Well, 3 of us standing over a little hallway, a little alcove, you know. We're talking to different guys coming and going, you know, all Army people. Well, while we're there, in came 6 of these people, and this fellow with his big goatee, the big black hair, you know, come right in, sat right down. Right over there's a barber shop, 3 barbers. And so the other boys, I said, let's second hang around here. The bus hasn't come yet. Let's see, I want to see that fellow get it. He's the first one.
Yeah.
He was kind of boss of the group, you could see that. So anyway, 3 barbers were there, and when one of the barbers looked around, one of the boys pointed this fellow, this kid didn't know what was going on. So anyway, 3 of them go in, he's one of the first 3 of them right next to the, well, as far as they're there from us. Only there's a big glass wall there. It's a barber shop. You gotta go through the door over there to get in, you can see him. Well, so anyway, and he was a character, that Army barber, you could see that, you know. And he was asking this young fellow, you know, how he wanted to show him his hair cut this way and down like this, you know. One of the boys had done this, you know, and a big smile on his face and a big bow. Well, he's listening to this kid. We can't hear him talk, but we can see what's going on. So the kid showed him, I want to go all like this and down, you know. Well, he takes his mowing machine and he goes right up front and right down back. White like that, you know, all the way across. You should see the looks on that kid's face. I was watching his face.
He didn't get it, huh?
Oh, was he some surprised kid. When they got through, it was just as clean as my hair.
There you go.
Yeah. When we clapped like this, and the barber gave us a big bow. He's an Army barber, you know.
Oh, that's funny.
But that's what they have to do.
Yeah.
But down in this is a big reception center, still is.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people can't go through it. I think they ought to have a
Basic
separate
training.
school
Yeah.
to teach these boys and girls to know something, you know.
Well,
Well,
I think we have to go now.
oh, that's sick.
Have to go get our supper.
We give you a little idea of some
Yeah.
of the things, I hope, you know.
Can
What I told you, they're all true stories. Don't make up stuff, you know.
can I get you to just sign my release form?
Oh, sure
You got a pen
have
on you?
that. Oh,
This just gives us permission to share it with some other kids. Share your
Okay.
story.
okay. Well, if a boy wants to go in the Army, there we are.
That's good. Thanks.
They get a great, if they don't have any education or don't have any money, they can get a good education in the Army. They could get a job.
Sure.
That's,
Well, some of them don't want to work. That's the problem.
well, oh, that's the whole thing. But if they want to get ahead, you know,
Yep.
a soldier can go in as a private, and he can end up as an officer, go to officer school if he wants to learn something.
Right.
And another thing it does to kids, that you're put in with 200 people, all nationalities, all the stuff, you know, that goes on, all there. They get some change. If you're an only boy in the family, like my son is, well, when your dad always had everything you wanted, you tell him, he said, well, please, you know, when you get in there, you get educated, you do like you're told, and you don't say, I want, you know.
Right.
It gives a great education. It helps a lot of kids.
Builds character.
Yeah, I know a lot of boys that have gone into service, and most all of them turn out. It's seldom it's the only reason it's okay out if he doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
So,
Tell the kids that they gotta have a good education if they want to get ahead in this world. And they better do it. Do it now while they got the chance. Because when, like, driving our truck,
yeah.
you gotta have a good education. And it's getting more so with the government regulation. We got a lot of government regulations going on, you know, new ones. On hours of service and all the red tape you gotta have to go along with the regular bill of lading. You gotta be able to talk to people. You've gotta be able to remember what you're putting on your truck and everything. You've gotta be able to drive right. You gotta be able to be on duty like you're supposed to be. You go to work at 1 o'clock in the morning. We have lots of guys go to work at 1, 2 o'clock. But they're home by noon time. Go home, go to sleep, and not do something the rest of the time.
Right.
You know. But we have boys coming in our place there, want a job, don't know how to do a thing.
Don't know how to.
Now, how are they going to get a job? They don't have anything to come in. Now, I'll just tell you a quick story. I know you gotta go. 3 years ago, we had 2 colored fellows. Well, they're both got big jobs now. But anyway, they came and I talked with one of them, my guy that does the most iron were there, and this boy's a mechanic. And this is what I like about it. And I didn't know for anything. We lived in Saratoga. The first one come in, and one job was mechanic. So I talked to him, talked to the guys that's the hiring, when you go to work? He said, right now. Where's your tools? In my car. And Paul LaPointe, you might know him, he was an ex-trooper.
Right.
But he worked for me for a long time. So anyway, he takes him right out of the shop. That boy worked 1.5 years for us. Well, in the meantime, another colored fellow come in. Same procedure. You're a mechanic, go in, talk with him. When you go work right down the tools, huh? He put him out in our tank repair shop. And he worked there for 1.5 years, 1 year. There, and then and this is another thing I liked about these fellows. These 2 of them come in one day to see me. And they said to me, said, Mr. Holmes, we got a job. We get down here, one of these big trucking companies comes in, I can get $20 an hour. My sister get almost as much. Got 2 of us. And so he said, we're paying 16. I said, I can't go that high. I said, we understand that. And we like it and everything here, but we've got to try to help ourselves. I said, that's all right with me. I see you leave. If you get a recommendation, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
They went down, and 6 months later, the first one is head of 100 trucks, and the other one is assistants.
No kidding.
Now, if white boys would come in like that,
Yeah.
and these white boys come in, they don't have a damn you got. They don't know what to do.
No ambition.
They
don't know what to do.
They don't know what to do. That's the hardest.
They don't even know where to start, probably.
They never had to do anything.
Yeah.
They never were hungry.
They had everything handed to them.
Well, that's where it goes.